All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome on in to the latest episode of the Off Air Podcast. I'm Chris Thomas, joined by the head honcho, Mike Conti. Mike, what a start. I mean, what a start for Atlanta United, the hottest team in MLS, the hottest team in the city by far, given what the Hawks are going through right now. And one of the best stories, in my opinion, in the sports world going right now. The way that they've been able to bounce back and not only just bounce back, Mike, but you've obviously seen and called every minute of the action right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I mean, they're doing it with flair. They're
Yeah.
doing it with style. They're doing it with electricity. Just how much fun has it been so far?
I know people don't believe this. I have fun no matter what. I love calling games. So whether it's a 5-1 win or a 5-1 loss, I always have fun doing it. But to be honest, I mean, it's more fun when they're playing well as opposed to the alternative. And they're playing incredibly well right now. So, um, it's I think I got a question in a meeting today about if our teams are doing well, does it lead to an increase in listenership? And believe it or not, it does. Like we've been able to kind of measure that, especially with the Hawks. When they were making their playoff run a couple of years ago, our numbers were off the charts. In 2018, when Atlanta United was making their run, our numbers were really, really good. Attached to our Atlanta United programming. When the Falcons are good, we tend to do better during football season. So what I'm hoping is that a lot of people are getting interested because they're playing well and they're coming to us to hear more about it. We're always going to take the soccer content really, really seriously because we know a subset of our audience really demands it. We try very hard to provide as comprehensive soccer coverage as we can, which is why we have Jason doing a show on Monday night, which is why we talk about Atlanta United on our shows. We consider them to be one of the four, major teams in our market, and we treat them as such in the way that we talk about them. And yeah, I mean, they're probably more interesting when they're doing well than when they're not. So we're going to try to ride this as much as we can, but it's been, from my perspective, Chris, it's been a lot of fun being a part of it. It's been a lot of goals to call. I would kind of like a low-scoring, calm match so I don't lose my voice because I feel like I'm losing my voice a little bit these first couple of weeks, but I guess that's a good problem to have.
All right, so let's take a little deep dive here and peel back the curtain as you only can here on the Off Air Podcast. When Atlanta United does well, 92.9 The Game's digital and podcast numbers and I mean exponentially, by the tens, by the hundreds, by the thousands, go up and up and up. When Atlanta United does well, the interest from the fan base in the way that they consume digital content on our website, on our podcast pages, Mike, it is something that resonates in a way that even when the Braves won the World Series and Georgia won the national championship, a good run for Atlanta United blows those things out of the water from a digital perspective. It's amazing.
Yeah, I wonder why that is so acute on the digital side. I mean, I know that digitally we can kind of super serve the soccer audience, and maybe that's why. I mean, we have more time in the digital realm to get really in the weeds and really into depth about it, as opposed to like a 10-minute segment on Dukes and Bell. But
right.
you are absolutely right. I mean, we definitely see that on the digital side. And I think, again, it's a real testament to Jason's hard work. Jason does a tremendous job. But we put all our soccer content there. Like if you guys were to have Garth Lagerway on Dukes and Bell, we would put it there. So I think the fact that we have a lot of subscribers, A, and B, it's all kind of in one place and it's easy to find. That probably helps. But you're right. Yeah, it could also be possibly I don't know if we've done a ton of research on this and if we have a lot of data to back this up, but it does feel to me that maybe the soccer audience skews a little bit younger.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, maybe it's an audience that consumes audio more in the digital realm than over the air. But we even see it in our over the air terrestrial ratings too. I mean, when Atlanta United does well, we do see those pops for games and for content. It's really cool working in a market, working in a city where people care as much about the soccer team as they do here.
Yeah, and the third piece of it to complete the puzzle here is the live in-game experience. There is
Absolutely.
nothing like an Atlanta United game when the crowd is going and the songs are going and the chants are going. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've been first in attendance at almost every home game so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think in overall average attendance, that's true. Charlotte had a really good crowd for their first match that I think was slightly higher than what we got in Atlanta. Charlotte, I think, now has the all-time single match record. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the list of the top 10 attended matches in Major League Soccer history, I want to say 8 of them are in Atlanta. And Atlanta's going to lead the league in average attendance again this year. Look, let's address the elephant in the room. I know there are some people who feel like we overdo our soccer coverage. I'd see some people say we force feed our audience soccer coverage. I can't square that thought with what I see on Saturday nights when there's 45,000 people in the stadium.
Yep.
That's a larger crowd than what the Braves get. That's by a factor of 3 larger than what the Hawks get.
And by force feed, you mean 1 or 2 segments a week out of.
I know. But listen, I mean, I want to listen to our customers. I listen to all the feedback, whether I agree with it or not. I feel like we achieved the balance, but there are some people out there who believe that 1 or 2 soccer segments, 1 or 2 too many. I don't know how you can disrespect a team and a sport in this city that's drawing like that. And these aren't speculative figures. I mean, these are real numbers that we see on weekends. So it's very much the same as, Georgia State, Georgia Tech football. Like, I'm not going to disrespect those teams. I have attended those games, and I know how many people attend. There are tens of thousands of people who listen to our radio station who are very, very interested and engaged with those programs. Same as Atlanta United, same as the Braves. I mean, I'm sure there's probably listeners to our competition who believe they force feed their audience Braves content. Well, the Braves have a lot of interest. Just because you're not a Braves fan doesn't mean that particular station is force feeding content. So I take the same approach with Atlanta United. And look, we have the numbers to prove it. Right? And you mentioned with the digital downloads, I've talked about our terrestrial ratings. We have an audience that demands the content. We're going to give it to them.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, let's talk about murder because
a heck of a transition.
Yeah. So our good friend Dylan Matthews, flippantly one day, I asked him, I was coming out of my show on Saturday and he was coming in to produce one of the games. And I said, we were just talking about our plans for the weekend. And he said, oh, me and my girlfriend, we can't wait to get home tonight and watch the new season of You. And I said, what's that? And he said, it's a really good show on Netflix and that I should check it out. So I looked into it and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. It kind of seems like a little like on the romantic side, which is not really my cup of tea. But I was like, you know what? I think Dylan has good taste generally. I'll give it a shot. So I flipped on the first episode and boy, was I wrong. It is about a serial killing lover boy who stalks women in New York City and tricks them into falling in love with him. And then through betrayal and shenanigans, considers murdering them and murders people around them that get in his way. So my question is, thinking about this, I was like, why, Mike, are we as a society so obsessed with these types of shows? True crime, murder shows, murder mysteries. If you go on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, every other show is about this type of stuff, and we are transfixed on it. And I don't know why.
Mm. Yeah, really good question, Chris. I'll even attest to that. That Murdoch trial that was going on in South Carolina.
Right.
The guy who was convicted of killing his wife and son because he wanted sympathy over stealing money from his clients. He was an attorney. Like, really complicated, elaborate case. I could not stop watching that.
Right.
Could not stop watching the Murdoch trial. Um, I don't really know why. I can't really put my finger on that now, other than I thought it was unpredictable, incredibly interesting. Maybe the unpredictability is what hooks us in. You know, I'm gonna kind of veer off to one side here. I apologize. I had jury duty last May.
Okay.
And a lot of people, they kind of dread, like, oh, I don't want to have jury duty. This is a hassle. I don't have time for this.
I feel
I
like
had
you'd make a good foreman.
and I was the foreman. As a matter, I was the foreman. In fact, please address me for the rest of the segment as Foreman Conti. I would appreciate that. So anyhow, like, you know, you don't really want to do jury duty, but when you finally go into that courtroom and you know they're picking jurors, you kind of feel like, all right, well, I've made it this far. If they're gonna pick me, I might as well make the best of this experience.
Sure.
And the judge we had in DeKalb County, I don't know if I'm allowed to like give too many details on a broadcast, so I'll just say the judge we had was an awesome judge. You know, kept the atmosphere in the courtroom as laid back as he possibly could, did everything he could to make the jurors feel comfortable. And just to be transparent, I had a civil case. No one was going to jail. We weren't sending anyone to the chair. It was a civil case, a disagreement between two people, and it was a week-long trial. And Chris, I got to tell you, I loved it. I loved the experience. I thought it was fascinating. I was fascinated about how the lawyers argued the case. I was fascinated about the details of the case. I think because it was a situation that I could have projected myself being in one
Okay.
day, either the plaintiff or defendant. So going back to like all these true crime series, maybe it's because we can always picture ourselves being in a show like that. We don't enjoy the thought that one day we could be murdered, but you can certainly picture yourself getting into a sticky situation where, you know, something bad can happen. So maybe there's a certain aspect of relatability to it that makes us enjoy it. But that's a really, really good question. Like,
It's
why
just
do we as a society love those types of shows?
it's so interesting because, like, let's be frank here. There's enough negativity that goes on in life on a day-to-day basis that
Yeah.
one would think that, when you get home from a long day of work and, you see your spouse and you just want to eat dinner and then relax and watch something fun and light and, get ready for bed and get ready for the next day. It's like, no, I want to either watch people getting decapitated or people getting stalked or people, I want to watch a documentary about the OJ trial for the 700th time with David Schwimmer and whoever else is going to be in it. And it's so interesting that, throughout the course of any given day, life throws a lot of crap at you. And instead of wanting to, come home and be relieved of that, we dive headfirst into more of it. And I'm endlessly fascinated by that for us as humans, Mike.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. And look, I think there's also the element too of it's fun to watch horror movies with friends. It's fun to watch thrillers with friends. Like social experience that I think goes along with it as well. And for some of these widely watched shows, again, kind of a social experience where we like talking about it on social media. We like interacting with people, to share our thoughts and feelings about it. So that might be part of it too. It's just weird for me to think about this because I'm so consumed with programming a sports talk radio station, programming to a sports audience, thinking about what a sports audience likes, especially men 25-54, which is our target demographic.
Right.
That this is kind of a fun thought exercise for me, Chris, because you're making me think of something that I don't usually think of.
No, that makes sense because
Yeah.
usually when it comes to these sorts of things, we just do. We don't think. Like we just do. So meaning we go home at night and we just put on what we want to watch. We don't necessarily think, I saw a car accident today on my way to work and it really impacted me because, there was a child in the back seat and the child could have been hurt. And how do I unwind from that? Murder shows. but we just do it. We don't consciously think like, oh, I'm gonna put on a rerun of Friends because I had a crappy day. We just gravitate to what we like, and that's what we do. All right, I love what we're about to get into here. This tickled me yesterday because I think Nick Saban was getting a little petty. And I like his sentiment because if you're catching up on this for the audience, Alabama suspended a player for conduct detrimental, say that 5 times fast, to the team. Something that Alabama basketball didn't do with Brandon Miller, their star player, after he was involved in a situation which led to the death of a young woman. Nick Saban took to the podium yesterday and shared his thoughts about the situation.
Tony Mitchell has been suspended from the team and all team activities until we gather more information about the situation and what his legal circumstance is. And, guys, everybody's got an opportunity to make choices and decisions. There's no such thing in being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
See, that last part is why this is so good, Mike, because Nate Oates, the head coach for Alabama basketball, when making his public comments about Brandon Miller, said he was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, Nick Saban's a very careful guy with words. I don't think that was a coincidence, although I guess some of his surrogates have claimed that they are. I don't know, but we've already had once, I think it was this academic year in the SEC, kind of coach on coach friction within a program with Calipari and Mark Stoops at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And
how about A&M and Nick Saban as well?
Well, yeah, but that's different. That's two different schools going on. I'm talking about within the same school.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Where I can't remember how this happened. Either Mark Stoops said that Kentucky was no longer a basketball school or something like that, and Calipari took exception to it. Maybe it was the other way around. I don't fully remember. But I mean, what do you think the AD at Alabama is thinking as all of this is unfolding, knowing full well that Nick Saban can probably say whatever he wants?
Not probably.
Yeah, he runs the school. I mean,
not probably.
Put it out there. I mean, he runs that place. So,
I think you can argue he runs the state.
Yeah. Like next to the governor of Alabama, he's probably the most prominent person in the state. He might even be more prominent than the governor. So, I guess this would be kind of a sticky wicket for the AD, because how do you address it? Right. Do you even address it? Is there anything you can say? Nate Oates, to my knowledge, has not really clapped back. To my knowledge, he's got a number 1 seeded team's got a great chance to go to the Final Four. I don't think he has time for this right now. But wow,
yeah,
wow. And if you're in Tuscaloosa watching all this, you're just sitting back and eating the popcorn and waiting for this all to evolve.
Well, I think there's only one potential downside for this. all of the negative stuff surrounding Nate Oates, does he maybe say, I'm a really good coach, I could probably pick and choose where I want to go? I want to get away from this drama a little bit. That was, when I was thinking about it, that was the only potential downside I could see.
Well, it's interesting for Nate Oates. He is still at a football school. Alabama is always going to be a football school.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama could win the next 4 national championships of college basketball. It's still always going to be a football school. This is something Billy Donovan had to deal with at Florida. He won back-to-back national championships at Florida. Florida was still and is a football school with a strong basketball program. Does Nate Oates want to run a strong basketball program at a football school, or does he want to run a strong basketball program at a basketball school, knowing that financially the outcome will probably be comparable? Alabama has very deep pockets. From a facility standpoint, I don't know. I don't even know if that would really be a big deal. You're also in the world of one and done. So, as far as being a program builder is concerned, that's not really an immediate concern anymore. So, yeah, maybe Nate Oates does survey the situation and look at some of the openings and, like Georgetown is taken now. But,
well, you mentioned John Calipari. What if they move on?
Yeah, and Kentucky would be absolutely the type of school that would, I'm sure, ask Alabama for permission. So, yeah, who knows? I think, again, it's a different type of challenge to go to a basketball school and succeed as opposed to a football school and succeed. That's why Tubby Smith was only going to go so far at Georgia. All due respect to Georgia, Georgia's a football school. Basketball is probably second on the list of athletic priorities.
You could maybe even argue third. Their baseball team is pretty important over there.
That argument could absolutely be made. So, there was only so long that they were going to be able to keep Tubby Smith. And that could be the same situation at Alabama. Whether or not it's a product of all of this and maybe accidentally on purpose, coincidental comment, I don't know.
I think that's a perfect way to summarize it and a perfect way to end it right there.
Accidentally on purpose.
Yes. All right. That'll do it for this edition of the Off Air Podcast. A big thanks to the head honcho, Mike Conti. Follow him at Mike Conti 929. I am Chris Thomas. Follow me at C Thomas Radio. By the next time we speak, Atlanta United may have tacked on another 8 goals. We shall see. And is Nate Oates preparing to coach at Kentucky? We'll find out.
Wow.
Thanks for listening.